Okay, so our new topic we're going to discuss is GCFs and LCMs, greatest common factors and least common multiples. Greatest common factor, abbreviated GCF, also known as a GCD. GCD stands for greatest common divisor. They mean the same thing. Basically, my definition, I don't like using textbook definitions or internet definitions. I feel like they confuse students, so I try to use my own wherever I can to try to make it easier for you. But essentially, it's the biggest factor contained in the given numbers. In other words, it's the biggest number you can divide everything by. That's what a greatest common factor is. And we also look at them as small and shared. And I'll talk about what that means in a second. That's my little, footnote here to kind of make it real easy and help you. We also have LCMs, which are abbreviated least common multiple, which are abbreviated LCM. Think of that as counting by. So if you're counting by 5s, 5, 10, 15, 20, or counting by 20, 20, 40, 60, 80, and so on. That's the first number you come across when counting. When counting by a number. So when you're looking at both numbers and you start counting by one and you count by the other, it's the first number that they both have in common. I think showing examples in this section is going to make it a lot easier. I don't worry too much about the definitions. That's why I just kind of give you my definitions. And for LCM, remember it as large and all. So anyway, I'm just going to dive right in here and show you. So the first question I've got, it wants a GCF. So the greatest common factor. What is the greatest common factor of 42x to the second, y to the fourth, z to the second, and 30x, y to the third, and z to the second? So you're going to start these problems. If you want to do them by hand, you don't have to do them by hand. You can use your calculator, but I want to show you the theory behind this so that we understand what the number is trying to tell you. I'm going to take 42 and I'm going to prime factor it, just like we did when we worked with square roots. So I'm going to take 42 and divide it by 2, and I get 2 and 21. 21 breaks down to 3 and 7. So the factors of 42 are 2, 3, and 7. The factors of 30, when I take 30 and divide it by 2, I get 2 and 15. 15 will break down to 3 and 5. Again, that's kind of review from square roots. I went a little fast, but you should be able to follow that. So I factored it, and now I look at the factors that are common in each, and I circle them. So I have a 2 over here and a 2 over here. I have a 3 here and a 3 here. 5 or a 7, there's no 7 over here, so it's not a common factor. So what I do is I circle the common factors. So I have 2 and 3 and 2 and 3, and I just multiply. 2 times 3 is 6. So the greatest common factor, the biggest number I can divide 42 and 30 by, is 6. That's essentially what a greatest common factor is. So I've narrowed my options down just by doing that to either B or C. So how do I know which one to pick? Well, the variable kids can get confused on, so I try to make it real easy for you. That's why I say a GCF is small and shared. This part here is talking about the variables, okay? So the shared variables, the variables contained in each term, this has an x and this has an x, but I'm going to pick the shared. So they're both shared. That's what I mean by shared. And this has a y and this has a y, this is a z and this is a z. So all three of the letters, all three of the variables are shared in each term. Now I'm going to pick the smaller of the exponents. So the smaller of the exponents, I have x squared and x. So I'm going to pick out the x, just this one. I have y to the fourth and y to the third. So y to the third is smaller, so I'm going to pick y to the third. And z to the second and z to the second are the same thing, so I can pull out z to the second. So the answer to this question is B. That's what I mean by small and shared. Let's jump down and look at an LCM. So an LCM, what is the least common multiple of a monomial shown above? Well, a monomial just means like this and this. They're just a number with one number. Okay, it's like 2 is a monomial. So let's do the number part. So if I did the number part and I counted it, I mean, you can do a prime factoring. It just makes it more confusing. I don't want to get into that. So if you count it by 12, you have 12, then 24, and 36, and 48, and 60, and 72, and so on. So this would be 20, and 40, and 60. So the first number I come across that they both have, that they both, like the common one, when I counted by, is 60. So I know the answer, the number part, is going to be 60. So I've narrowed my option to either B or to D. So, again, I got to look at my variables. Now, for an LCM, I say large and all. So I'm going to use all the letters. I don't care if this one doesn't have a Z and this one does. You use all the letters they give you. This one, they both have X and Y. So large and all. The little L, think of it as standing for large and all. Okay, that's what I always tell the kids. So I'm going to have X and Y, and if there would have been a Z here and a or an R or whatever, you'd pull all the letters out. No matter if it's in one, you got to use it. So I'm going to pick the larger of my exponents now. So I have x to the fourth or x to the third. Well, I'm going to pick x to the fourth. Y to the third and y to the third is just going to be y to the third. So the answer to this one is going to be B. Okay. So GCF is small and shared, and LCM is large and all. Okay. Now, use the calculator. The calculator is going to save you a lot of work. Okay, so we want to turn our calculator on, and what I'm going to look for here, oops, excuse me, I'm going to hit the math button, and I'm going to go use a little arrow button and scroll over to num. So I'm sorry you couldn't see that. Let me back out just a little bit so you can see. Okay, start over again. So I turn the calculator on, I'm going to hit this math button right here. It says math. Boom. Okay, I'm going to go over to num, and I'm going to scroll down all the way until I see, LCM and GCD. So for this one, I want a GCF or a GCD. So I'm going to pick GCD. And I can't put the variables in, and you can only do two numbers at a time. So if they give you one with 3, you just have to use 2 and then 2, then the last set. And we'll talk about that later in class. I'm going to do 21, comma 77. You have to separate them by the comma. The comma is located right above the number 7. So let me show you again. So I have 21, hit the comma button, then 77. Good habit to close the parentheses and hit enter. So it's telling you that the number part is 7. So I know the answer is either A or D. So now a GCF is small and shared. So I'm only using the shared letters. So this has an X and this has an X, this is a Y and this has a Y. I have to use the smaller of the exponents. So I'm using X to the third and Y. So the answer is D because it's small and shared. Okay. We'll scroll down and look at number 8. Okay, so they want the LCM of 36x, y to the fourth, z to the fourth, and 30x to the third, y, and z to the fourth. So again, let's use our calculator. I'm going to hit the math button. Let's get everything signed up so you can see the math button. I'm going to go over to num. I'm going to scroll up or down, whatever, till you find LCM. And I'm going to type just the number part in, 36, comma, 20, and hit enter. So it's 180. So if I counted by 36, I would eventually get the 180. When I count by 20, I would eventually get the 180. That's the smallest number when you're counting by that they both contain. So I'm going to either pick B or I'm going to pick D. Well, remember the L, we kind of think of it as large and all. So I'm going to use all the letters X, Y, and Z, X, Y, and Z. So the answer is going to contain X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to use the larger of the exponents. So X to the third, y to the fourth, z to the fourth. So the answer to this question is going to be D. So that's all there is to it. So again, greatest common factor, think of it as small and shared. LCM, think of it as large and all. The calculator will do all the grunt work for you. So I suggest you use it. And there you go. There's an LCM and a GCF for you.